All right, we're about to take a journey into one of the weirdest, most mysterious parts of our lives, dreaming. I mean, why does your brain, every single night, create these totally bizarre, emotional, and sometimes really profound worlds? Let's dive in and find out.
But first, I want you to just think back for a second. Can you remember what you thought a dream actually was when you were a little kid? Did you think it was a movie playing on your wall, a ghost in your room? It's a surprisingly tricky concept for a little brain to get a hold of.
You know, for most of us, our first introduction to the word dream was our parents trying to comfort us after a nightmare. But that phrase, "it was just a dream," doesn't really explain anything to a terrified kid, does it? It's such a strange and unlikely idea when you first hear it.
In fact, psychologists have actually mapped out the stages we all go through to figure this out. First, when we're preschoolers, we literally think dreams are real things happening outside of us. Then, we kind of get that they aren't real, but we still think they're happening somewhere out there. It's not until we're around 8 to 10 years old that we finally get to the modern adult understanding that a dream is a totally private, imaginary experience happening inside our own heads.
Now, when we start talking about understanding dreams, there's one name that just inevitably comes up. But to really get into the science of it, we have to look way beyond the most famous couch in history.
Yeah, of course, we're talking about Sigmund Freud. And look, his book, The Interpretation of Dreams, was absolutely revolutionary. But the scientific story of dreaming, it didn't start with him. In fact, his incredible fame kind of overshadowed the crucial work of some amazing people who came before him.
I mean, get this. For decades before Freud, these forgotten pioneers were doing mind-blowing work. You had St. Denis meticulously recording and even controlling his own lucid dreams. Mary Whiton Calkins was using statistics, actual quantitative analysis to show our dreams just reflect our waking lives. And Sante De Sanctis, he was using early electrophysiological tools and found that dreaming was most common late in the night during periods of irregular breathing. That's a stunning preview of a discovery that wouldn't happen for another 50 years.
And that discovery, well, that would be the true game changer. It wasn't some new psychological theory. Nope. It was a biological accident that completely revolutionized how we see the sleeping brain.
So picture this. It's one night in 1951. A broke grad student named Eugene Aserinsky is monitoring his son Armin's sleep. And suddenly, the machine that's recording eye movements just goes wild. Aserinsky rushes into the room, thinking his son must have woken up. But no. Armin was fast asleep, his eyes just darting back and forth like crazy beneath his eyelids. Aserinsky didn't find a broken machine, he had stumbled upon a whole new state of consciousness, REM sleep. At first, scientists called it paradoxical sleep, and for a very good reason. It's this bizarre state where your brain's electrical activity looks almost identical to when you're wide awake, and yet your body's voluntary muscles are almost completely paralyzed. It's an active, alert mind trapped inside a sleeping, immobilized body. This table right here shows you that unique signature across 3 key measurements. See, during non-REM sleep, your brain waves, eye movement, and muscle tone all slow way down. But then you hit REM sleep, and boom, the brain activity fires right back up just like when you're awake. The eyes start moving in these rapid bursts, all while your muscle tone drops to basically zero. That specific combination, that's the telltale sign of a dreamer at work.
Okay, so discovering a biological state for dreaming was huge, but it led to an even deeper question. To understand why we dream, we first have to understand why we sleep. And it turns out sleep isn't really about rest, it's about work.
The pioneering sleep researcher Alan Rechtschaffen put it perfectly. And just think about it for a second. For hundreds of millions of years, animals have made themselves completely vulnerable, paralyzed and unconscious for hours every single day. If sleep wasn't doing something absolutely essential for survival, evolution would have gotten rid of it a long, long time ago.
For a long time, we thought sleep was just about saving memories, kind of like filing away papers from the day. But the modern view is so much more exciting. Sleep evolves our memories. Your brain isn't some passive file clerk, it's an active editor. It's searching for hidden patterns, pulling out the essential lesson, the gist, and connecting new stuff to old knowledge to make it way more useful for your future. So how can we prove this? Well, in one really simple experiment, people learned a repetitive finger tapping task. After they trained in the morning, they were tested 12 hours later with no sleep in between. Their improvement? Zero. Nothing. But look at this. They took another group, trained them in the evening, and then let them get a full night of sleep. When they were tested the next morning, with no extra practice at all, they were a full 20% faster and more accurate.
The improvement didn't happen when they were practicing, it happened while they were asleep.
So, the crucial point here, the old saying is wrong. It's not practice makes perfect. As neuroscientist Matt Walker summed it up, it's practice with sleep makes perfect. Sleep is an active and totally essential ingredient for learning and mastering skills.
Okay, so we know our brains are actively evolving memories during sleep, and we know that during REM sleep, our brains are wildly active in creating these vivid dream worlds. So let's connect the dots. What if dreaming is an essential part of that memory evolution process?
This brings us to a powerful new theory called Next Up. It stands for Network Exploration to Understand Possibilities. The core idea is that dreams aren't just random nonsense. They're a form of biological intelligence, like a sophisticated simulation space where your brain explores distant, weak, and unusual connections between your memories to see what new insights might pop out.
To test this, researchers used a really clever tool called semantic priming, which basically measures how our brain connects ideas. So, for example, your brain connects the word right to wrong almost instantly. That's a strong, obvious association. But the connection between thief and wrong, that's weaker, more conceptual. Your waking brain takes a little bit longer to make that leap. And this is exactly what we see during the day. While we're awake, our brains are all about being hyper-efficient. We rely on those strong, direct, logical connections. So that obvious link between right and wrong gets a huge boost, while the weaker, more creative link between thief and wrong barely even registers. And that makes sense for getting through the day.
But now, look what happens when we test people immediately after waking them up from REM sleep, when their brains are still in that dreaming state. The pattern completely flips. Suddenly, the strong, obvious connection gets suppressed, and the brain shows this massive preference for exploring the weak, distant, unexpected association. The dreaming brain isn't interested in the obvious. It's hunting for creative leaps.
And this gets to the absolute core idea of Next Up. Your dreams aren't a literal replay of your day. They are a creative exploration. Your brain takes little bits and pieces of your experiences and intentionally mashes them up with distant memories just to ask, what if? What if these two totally unrelated things are actually connected? What new understanding could that give me?
Here's a perfect real-world example. A researcher who did animal surgery had a dream that his dog was on the operating table, but then it suddenly turned into his 5-year-old daughter. The dream wasn't predicting the future, no. Instead, his brain was exploring the weak but incredibly powerful emotional associations between these two beings. Love, vulnerability, responsibility. It was strengthening his understanding of what it means to care for something fragile.
So why do we dream? We dream to understand. We dream to connect. We dream to discover possibilities we would never ever consider in the logical light of day. And that leaves us with a beautiful irony, doesn't it? Your body may rest, but your mind is on its most creative and important mission of the day. It never really sleeps. It dreams.